All right, welcome to another Big Daddy D adventure. Today we are solving a problem. The problem we're solving is my dad has these for meds. He lays them out for a week and got a nice box for them. It holds them really sweet. But when you go to fill them, if you look, they're really tight. You know, they overlap. And then, well, you go, okay, well, maybe you take them out. Well, as soon as you take them out, they tend to fall over. So here's the solution that we're going to build for my dad today. What we're going to do is we're going to take and we're going to cut a board here that's going to probably be about 1 inch thick, just enough to where it helps these guys stand up. And then what we're going to do is we're going to space them out kind of about a thumb width, about a 5/8 of an inch. That way there'll be some space between them, right? And then that way he can lay them out in this board. Again, we'll put a backer on the board after we cut out these holes to slip these guys down into the container. And well, we'll see if that works for him. I think that will help him be able to load his pills whenever he's loading the pills, and then he can put them back in the case whenever he's done. And then again, we're just trying to solve a problem and help my dad. All right, let's get to building. Of course, you measure twice, cut once, so I'm going to go ahead and lay this out on a board. I think I'm using a 1x8 board. Again, just marking out the parts that I want to cut off, and then we'll take it to the next step. And the next step on this project is I'm going to make a template. Since there's 7 of these holes that need to be all the same size, I'm making this pattern so that my flush cut trim bit can follow the pattern of each of those holes. And then that way I don't need to measure and cut every one of these holes. I'll just make one good template and then use the router to trace that hole into those 7 different slots. So for cutting the hole out of this piece of hardboard, I think it's a 1/4 inch thick, went ahead and drilled holes in the corners, and then I'm just using my jigsaw here to just cut it out. Then what I'm going to have to do is I want to make sure it's a pretty good tight fit on the board or on the pillbox. So I'm just taking a file to it here at the end just to make sure I get a good tight fit on there. Just trimming a little here, trim a little there, and getting it down to where it fits good. Well, let's get building. On my chop saw, it's not big enough to cut this board, so I had to make one cut and flip it over, and now I'm just lining up the saw to cut it all the way across. Looks good. Well, life's full of lessons, and well, I just want to leave this failure into this video. What I did is I just started with the holes drilled in the corners of these slots, and then I was using my guide and trying to just cut it all at one time, and well, that failed. It just started ripping it out. It was cutting too much. So what I did is I went back and got another board, marked all the board off, and then what I'm doing is using my skill saw to go ahead and cut within about a kind of a 1/16 or so of the edges. And then that way, whenever I go to use the router's just trimming a little edge off, and I think that'll work a lot better. Lesson learned. Well, using the template on this was definitely a time saver, and definitely made it a lot more consistent in building it. Did a great job. So what I'm doing here is I'm mounting the template to the bottom of the board. The flush cut bit that I have actually has a little bearing on the bottom of it, so I had to then flip it over and then work on it from the top side. On some of these slots, there were sections that I left it a little thick, and I did notice that when the trim router was bogging down too much, I went ahead and started taking smaller bites as I was going across those sections. So some of them I had to go over a couple times, but then it went all the way around and gave it a nice smooth cut. Now that the top board is roughed out, I went ahead and rough cut a piece of this 1/4 inch hardy board to be about the same size. Then I'm going to use the same process that I did for cutting everything else out, is just using that trim router, going around the edges. That way I can get a good tight edge all the way around the base on this. All right, next step on the top of the board is I'm going to go ahead and use a 1/4 inch round over bit on all these slots and then on all the edges of the top board. That way there's no sharp edges. Now that I've got it almost done, Went ahead and did a little bit of an inspection and noticed that there was a little bit of tear out on the bottoms of this board. So I think I'm going to go ahead and just do some finish sanding on it. I just wanted to make sure that there's no sharp edges or anything to keep it from sitting good and flat on the board. All right, now it's time to mount the backboard to the main board. What I'm using here is one of my drill guides just to make sure that I don't drill all the way through the front of the board. Then I'll just throw in some countersinks in there and screw it on. After putting both of the pieces together, I did notice it still had some rough edges around it. So again, a little bit of finish sanding here at the end, and then I think I'll be ready to put a nicer finish on it than this bare wood. I think I'm going to put some beeswax and orange oil. I got a little combo that I like putting on it. Just nice little surface for it, and should protect it. Well, I think everything's done. Now, only thing left is to do a little test fit, make sure everything fits in there. It doesn't fall out if you shake it. And then I'll take it over to my dad's and see if it will help him while he's organizing and filling his pillboxes. Well, thanks for coming on another workshop project adventure with me today. As usual, if you like what you saw, give me a thumbs up. And if you'd like to go on more project adventures with me, hit the subscribe button. As always, take care. Bye-bye.